while it means there's no escape, it also has ensured that the Celtic horde, the Britannic horde that is going to come their way, is not going to be able to outflank them or get behind them. And the hills also, not only with the high ground of the terrain, have few defiles and passages, which acts as a choke point. So not many warriors can rush up at the same time to engage the Roman lines. As you can see on the map, the 7,000 legionary infantry form the core and center of the army, which is, as I said, made up of the 14th Legion with some detachments of the 20th Legion. On the flanks of them, as you can see, are a grand total of 6 auxiliary infantry cohorts. So that's about 3,000 men. They're not as heavily equipped, but pretty well equipped, especially in comparison to their opponents. Modern historians have just said it's lower, but we don't really know the figure, but it is known that the Romans were significantly outnumbered. I think the most conservative estimates, even by modern historians, still put it about 6-7 times. So, anyways, they are just arrayed in a gargantuan brawl, and the few chariots which form the vanguard, which is just used by the nobility. And behind them, as you can see, the yellow rectangles are the various carts and wagons, which is their baggage, and also where their family, elderly, the sick, children, everyone up there to kind of urge them on and watch them beat the Romans to utter smithereens. Now, as you can see, this is a really do or die situation for both. The Romans actually, it's more so since they have nowhere to retreat. And now you have this gargantuan horde and warbands just charging at you. They have no formation, they have no commander. So anything like, a cohort, century, or officers to command them, nothing. You're just going to charge and you're just going to fight. Romans are not going to move, right? They are on a hilltop. There are defiles which limit the access ways, and they want the upward momentum to sap the charge of their momentum. And when these guys, the Britannic army comes, and they are within under 30 meters or so from the Roman lines, the legionaries would shower them with 2 volleys of the peel out. Standard Roman tactics of throwing their javelins. These guys are not at all as well equipped with armor, shields. They just have mostly long swords and spears. And 2 volleys of javelins, each about several thousand projectiles. It's going to cause a lot of havoc in the front lines. And it is at this moment Paulinus orders the charge, which I'm pretty sure the British would not have expected, given the numerical disparity. They advance in a series of offensive-shaped wedges, which is a Roman formation designed to break through enemy hosts. It also allows them to fight on multiple fronts. And this is where I really want to spend a little bit of time just talking about the scientific and methodical way in which the Romans have trained their men.
As Dan Carlin once explained in 2 of his podcasts, the Romans basically came to a point where they were looking at war like an administrator of a business. How do we make everything so efficient? How do we reduce the amount of blood that goes on the ground we're standing so we don't slip? How do we reduce the blood that goes over our hands and arms so we don't drop our weapons? And like you said, don't waste time and energy slashing when we can just poke it into the enemy and then we can go on for longer than them.
And you can also consider the fact that the pilum, one of the 2 screws that hold it in place, was actually wooden and not metal. And this allowed it to bend, which ensured that even if it's not going to kill the soldier, it's going to destroy his ability to use a shield. There was actually that science, and it's well known that in training and not in wartime, the Roman weapons and shields that they used were far heavier than their actual combat gear, which improved their endurance and stamina magnificently, that they could outlast pretty much a lot of people. But this is how the Romans start to advance. And now, just because of the sheer mass of the enemies, the Romans are advancing slowly, but they are steadily advancing. Any warrior who is not killed, but is just, you know, knocked down or slips, he gets trampled over by the Romans as they continue their advance. And after a couple of hours, they are pretty much on the opposite end of the battlefield, much to the frustration, nervousness, fear of everybody, because the warriors also know that their families are behind in the wagon forts cheering and watching. And the families are now like, we're supposed to be winning. And what happens is that the wagons, because of the way they are placed, actually act as choke points. So the number of people wanting to get out is way more than the number of people actually getting out. And as the Romans are building momentum, you just have a sandwich form, wagon and Roman, with the Britons in the middle. And the battle's over. The massacre is still going to continue. And the Roman soldiers showed no mercy. They stuck to Paulinus's orders and just, they don't look at plunder or anything, because they are now reaching the baggage camp and camp of riches, in army sense. They continue to kill without any mercy. So man, woman, child, beast, all were fell. And they scattered, and the pursuit lasted much longer, because it is said this battle, which we don't even know the date, was actually in the high summer. So there was an extended period of daylight. And at the end of the battle, when the pursuit ended and the Britons had fled, 80,000 of their number, include both combatants and non-combatants, were dead on the field. And per sources, maybe around 400 Romans. Except that the number's probably understated a bit, but I won't question the overwhelming ratio.
I think the Romans handily served these people a defeat. And I think these people, upon seeing how insignificant their tactics were against the Roman formations, they must have freaked out. And we all know you incur more casualties when you're fleeing the battlefield, and the Romans must have just trampled them.
And this is where, a brawler versus a proper soldier faces off. And we know the results.